Oh, are you Annette? Oh, you're Maggie. Not me. Oh, right. I was gonna say Maggie. Yeah, my sister-in-law. You guys all seem so great. Yeah. I know, it was great. It was good, like, a couple of 3 or 4 year olds who love time. Oh, yeah. And then, they just coincidentally see it right inside smoking. It was adorable. Right? The two people that are kind of just but it was oh yeah, it's like I said, I love them. It's where it's or the Alexandra. No, it's a training. Because the idea was here for my training and that's what so you're thinking like that. Are you? How are you guys? I think we're not. How are you getting? That's gonna. You know, like the girl left or how is that so like play or that? I know I'm gonna. And I have which. No, and then like when you. Oh, good. I was thinking so now. Yes, exactly. Those are. I don't know if you were this. Hotel live like I was thinking. I know, but we're in all the right direction. Yeah, it's gonna be really a problem. It's gonna be very easy. I love you. I just want to kind of put in. I would like to hear I know. I know. I think for your very, very good. Yeah, she's like, she'll be happy. I don't know if it'll mess up. You know what I'm gonna do? Here's your child. You forgot the restaurant. Yeah, and then get your book signed. Yeah. Well, I need Vanessa to sign it too. Alex, it's actually just Courtney. It's not the person. Oh my God, I'm sorry. You forgot your child. I forgot your forgot. You're the best. But yeah, but sign your book. Both of you.
Hello. I think we're going to get started. If you guys want to come over. Um, my name is Maggie. I'm the marketing and outreach manager here at City Bookshop. And I want to thank you guys for being here today, whether you're here in person or on our live stream. Um, Before I get started, I just wanted to highlight a couple of other YA events that we're having this fall. On Tuesday, we're going to be hosting Helena Haywood Henry for her debut Last Chance Live in conversation with Kwame Alexander. And on Wednesday, November 5th, we're hosting Chloe Gong for her next novel, Cold Wire. And we host a ton of events, and all information about that is on our website. Some housekeeping rules, I think most people here know, but the bathrooms are upstairs past the greeting card wall. If you're watching from home and are experiencing any technical difficulties, please let us know in the chat. And we will have time for questions tonight for both in-person and virtual attendees. So if you're watching via Zoom, please put those questions in the Q&A feature so that Marianne will see them and can ask on your behalf. And finally, if you need to purchase a copy of Fireblooms or any other books, the those will be available upstairs at the register and can be purchased after the event before the signing line. So a little bit about Fireblooms. When 17-year-old Sebastian agrees to come to New Galt to care for his absent and abusive mother after her cancer diagnosis, he is not prepared for the strange new community that awaits him or the distressing state he finds his mother in. He tries to help, but despite being ill, her tongue is as sharp as ever, finding all his tender places. But he promised his abuela he'd try to make this work. Unfortunately, trying also means attending tech, New Galt's high school. On his first day, he's assigned to enthusiastic tech student ambassador Lou, who introduces him to all tech can offer, a safe space free from bullying. But all this safety and technology comes with a catch. Not only do you have to watch what you say, but you have to stay within a strict word limit. Sebas declines. To him, New Galt feels more like the Stepford Wives than freedom. For Lou, who suffers from anxiety and has a history of being bullied, tech is a lifeline somewhere they can be safe. They can't understand why Sebas would refuse. When Sebas rejects tech, it feels as if he's rejecting Lou. But when Sebas learns he doesn't accept the tech phone and abide by the rules, his mother will be denied cancer treatment. He changes his tune. Slowly, Lou and Sebas form a friendship that morphs into something more. But the closer they get, the more Sebas challenges Lou's beliefs about tech and what it means to be safe. Meanwhile, Sebas contemplates how to forgive his dying mother for being no mother at all. Um, Alex Villasante's young adult novel, The Grief Keeper, won the 2020 Lambda Literary Award for LGBTQ children's literature young adult fiction and was a Junior Library Guild Gold selection. Alex is a contributor to several young adult short story anthologies and is a co-founder of the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival and the Latinx Storytellers Conference. When she's not writing or painting, Alex works for the Highlights Foundation. And our conversation partner tonight, Venessa Vida Kelley, is a Nuyorican author, illustrator, and aspiring mermaid who writes fairy tales about the real world so they can draw them too. They hold a BA and MA in English literature with concentrations in film from the University of Delaware and the George Washington University, respectively. And their illustrations have decorated LGBTQ plus books worldwide. Venessa lives in Washington, D.C. with their spouse, two sons, and an overabundance of teacups and washi tape. So please welcome the authors of the hour, Alex and Venessa.
Hi. Hello, friends.
Hello, hello. Thank you all so much for being here this evening with us to celebrate Fireblooms with my longtime friend and mentor, Alex Villasante. I am just so touched and feeling like a full circle moment here.
Mentor makes it sound like I did something. I didn't.
You
I
know,
didn't.
though,
No, Vanessa did it all by herself.
the power of those cafecitos cannot
Yes, the
be
cafecitos, that's true.
understated.
It's true.
So, so thank you again for bringing me into this evening. So I have some questions, and I am not going to reiterate everything that was already said, but we're going to dive right in, and I'm super, super excited. So I want to begin with the inspiration for Fireblooms. How was the genesis of this novel for you?
So, as you know, if you are a writer or know a writer, we kind of magpie some ideas together, or at least I do, and they kind of rattle around my head until some of them stick together, and I'm like, I think that's an idea. And I was listening to a bit from Chris Rock. You know, that's where I get all my ideas for young adult books. And he was saying, like, this is how you solve the problem of gun violence. You make the bullets really expensive. So he was like, make a bullet $5,000, $10,000, and then you'll see how fast you solve the problem of gun violence. And I was like, I get it. It's a joke, you know. And I was like, I wonder if you could do the same thing with hate speech. I wonder if you put an exorbitant price tag on words, what that would do to hate speech, how would it impact people, and who would be able to pay and who wouldn't be able to pay. So that's really where the idea started from. Because I like the whole what if, and I know you as an amazing author that you are, also like, what if these situations sort of collided together, and what would be the result, right? So yeah, that's the origin.
That is fascinating. Well, and so, and a good segue, because I would love to spend some time talking specifically about tech. And I unfortunately could not hear enough through the door to determine what was already said about tech. But if you wouldn't mind explaining tech one more time for our online folks.
Yes. Hello, online friends. Yes. So this is a fictional town in Northern California called New Galt, and it is built as a sort of technological utopia. So that means in this town, housing is state of the art, school systems are state of the art, medical treatment, there's a medical center. It's all of the highest caliber, the kind of stuff that you would really have to be like a one percenter to afford within the confines of this town. But how you pay for it, it's all free if you live in the town. But you must agree to be part of this sort of social experiment where any kids from the age of 12 to 18 have to agree to have their words monitored, restricted. So they have to pay for their words, kind of going back to that bullet idea. And how they do that is they monitor, they listen, they restrict words. And it sort of has somebody asked me in another event, like, how did you determine like the monetary value of each word? And I'm like, I did not do that. I just generalized, but there is like a dirty 30. There's like a list of words that are like really objectionable. It's not even just the individual words. It's also the like the intention. So if you say hateful things, if you say what they determine to be hate speech, that is really expensive, and it can make a difference in a person's, like a teen's social standing as well, because if you get into word debt, then you have to do something menial like work in the cafeteria. So it's this really sort of like kind of flipping in a very privileged place, in a place that has a lot of abundance. It's sort of flipping the script a little bit of like what has value. So that's the setting. And then we have I can keep going. Is that okay?
Yeah, feel free, feel free.
So that's the setting, and then the two characters. It's a dual point of view. Here they are. This is Lou, and this is Sebas. And Lou is sort of the inside character in the sense that they are an ambassador for the school, tech, and they really believe that this system is going to help them and other people stay safe. So they are an advocate for this system, and they believe that it is tenable. They understand the things that they're giving up, but they feel like giving that up, that bit of freedom up, is worthwhile. So it's a good exchange. And then you have Sebas, who comes from the outside, and he is like, what in God's green earth is this nonsense, you know? Except he would curse a lot, which is kind of what gets him in trouble in the beginning of the book. He's just dropping F-bombs all over the place. So it's really, the story is about how the two of them interact, and also how they see what it means to be safe, what it means to be part of a community, and what they can eventually mean to each other.
That's fantastic. So what I found fascinating about tech is that you never draw a real sort of like border around the positive versus negative aspects of tech. It means something different to every character. And at the same time, we the readers are like getting immersed in this technology and feeling like this is familiar. It also feels foreboding. Like we can easily see ourselves in this kind of a future and it being sort of marketed to us as this utopian, like this is going to fix everything. The surveillance and the I guess the monetization of words is something that
And
we are
expression and just being able to express yourself or not being able to. Yeah.
exactly. And the way characters then figure out how to subvert it. I just found it so fascinating that you have by and large Latina characters who have bought into this system and maybe they're okay with it in part because their Spanish allows them to fly under the radar.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how Latinidad layers over this tech landscape that you've created.
That was a very cool question. Okay. So first of all, as y'all know about everybody, we're not a monolith, right? So there are some Latine characters in this book that are just fine with this existence, and it works out well for them, and they might have more privilege than another person in the book who has more struggles. And so that's one layer, and another layer is not everybody in this book who is Latine speaks Spanish or another language. So that's another privilege. And this sort of putting these characters under that microscope of a restriction like that really like immediately puts a spotlight of who has privilege and who doesn't in a different way than what we're used to. So I do think on the one hand, the characters that speak, Kenzie is Korean American, does not does speak Spanish because she's extra and she taught herself Spanish.
I really like Kenzie.
Yeah, Kenzie's great. Everybody wants to be friends with Kenzie, including myself. But Diego, who is Dominican American, he does not speak Spanish. So and it also wanted to say, like, in this bro tech utopia, of course they devalued other languages. Because of course they did. Of course they went in there and said English, duh, and that was it. And so, I mean, as soon as you put these restrictions on kids, on anybody, they're going to find a way around it. Whether it's creating their own language, whether it's learning another language, until you put a patch over that and say, okay, we fix that, and then they'll just find another way. Which is another element that I wanted to bring in, sort of like the futility of trying to control people's expression. And again, I'm really glad that you said that. I didn't draw that hard line of like, this is bad, this is good. Like, as an example of a dystopian, that's why I don't call this a dystopian. Hunger Games, I love the Hunger Games. You really know who the bad guys are. You know who, there's not a lot of nuance. There is some, but there's not a lot of nuance. You understand that the system is rigged against you. In this, people can have the best intentions and really have something that they want to accomplish that you would agree with, but the way that they're getting there and the sort of the sort of like the idea of like it'll work out fine, and not really understanding how real people work in real situations is something that I wanted to talk a little bit about, because I think a lot of times when we have, whether it's a government or a corporation or whoever, say, I'm going to fix this, this is going to be great, hold my beer. And then they go and do it, and they're like, did you talk to any of the people? Right. Did you include anybody else's, or did you just go in there thinking that you understood how all these different people operate and what they value? You did not. So I'm not answering any of your questions. I'm just agreeing with what you said. Which sounds right.
I feel like I did my homework well, if that's the case. So similarly, like you didn't also, I think, draw a hard line around the characters that I think in other YA books might obviously be the baddies, right? Like, you gave us a very nuanced treatment of bullying, which I found, I think, like fresh, not just refreshing, but necessary, right? Like the idea that hurt people. And, and I know you are a parent, as well as a writer. And I'm wondering, what observations you have made, in either of those capacities, or even just remembering your own, childhood, and what you brought into the creation of the book on the bullying topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is when you so my parents were immigrants and didn't speak English when they got here, have heavily accented English. But I don't. I was born here. So I there's a lot of code switching and there's a lot of trying to I think most marginalized folks know this. You're trying to get adjacent to privilege and whiteness, right? And especially when you're a kid, you're trying to be less whatever that thing is. You want to straighten your hair, you want to don't go into the sun and get too brown. Whatever the thing is you want to do, you're trying to get closer to that. And when you're if you were me, and I'm not saying hypothetically, I'm saying me, I did this. When there are other people who are further away from that privilege and that whiteness, and you're in that space between, you have a choice to make. You have a lot of choices to make as a child, where you can either align yourself with power or defend the person who has less power than you in that situation. There's a lot to put on a kid, PS, but we do it all the time. So I remember very clearly being in both those situations where I did align myself more towards privilege and whiteness and didn't stand up for those people, or when I did, and when I wasn't stood up for and when I was. It's like it's very fluid, you're in, you're out. It's like a daily thing. Grew up in the 80s. Anyway. Draw a veil over that. But so I think that I understood that and that part, and that's like bullying, like small b. It was just the unkindnesses of childhood. When it comes to targeted bullying, one of my ways in was this amazing nonfiction book by Dashka Slater called Accountable. It just like forensically, but with real compassion, looks into a specific school bullying incident that happened in Northern California a few years ago. It's fantastic. If you haven't heard of it, it's won awards. It's really incredible. And it really does that kind of, it doesn't pick sides. It tells a story truthfully, and it maintains that all of the people engaged in this bullying, whatever side they're on, they're human beings that are fully realized and nuanced and hurts and angers and jealousies and all of the things that make a human. And my goal was really to like reflect that kind of fullness in these characters, because I don't think it benefits anyone to have like a paper mache villain. That's just not helpful, because it's not real, and you're not gonna if you're a kid reading a book like this, or Accountable, and you're trying to understand your world, you need to see people 360. So
Well, and especially from the standpoint of, we don't just have, bullies in the novel that are kids, and the value of showing a young adult, like, yeah, grown-ups can absolutely be horrendous bullies. Oh, so good. Okay, so I'm trying to find the through line here for this next question, which is slightly back to tech, but not really. So the novel felt very much like a meditation on language. So
oh my God, Venessa, I am such a nerd, and you just outed me as being the world's biggest nerd about language. It's true. It's like I just sit there and being like, you know what, it'd be funny if we made up a new language. I'm just terrible. Keep going with your question. Keep going with your question.
No, and I am similar, I think. Yeah. Like, because like the entire time as I'm reading this book, I'm getting extraordinarily meta through the entire thing. I was like, oh my God, so we have this tech that is like rationing words, but at the same time we have the main character who's like totally bought into tech, who is also a poet.
You're my people.
I was like, this is amazing. When it came to like the poetry of not just what Lou writes, but even just like the ruminations of these characters, like through their like POV and their narratives and whatnot. Like, what inspiration were you bringing to that? What sort of things were you excited about playing with in this world when it came to the poetic aspects?
So, I mean, that's definitely something I wanted to intentionally do, which is have at the heart of the story somebody who is an advocate for this restrictive system be a poet. Like, I'm like, of course that would happen, you know? And Lou is somebody who thinks very deeply about words, and words sustain them. Words are really the way that they understand themselves. So it's really important for them. And I think if you asked at at a certain point of the book, if you asked Lou, well, then why would you have the words restricted? They would probably say, when you have to be careful about how you choose a word for a poem, that gives it more value. So it's not like they are somebody who hasn't thought about it or doesn't understand that, but they are willing to take that risk. But for me, being a complete nerd, I am not a poet. Like, not at all. Like, no, no. And I will share this with you, even though it's incredibly embarrassing. In my first draft that I sent to my editor, she had notes for me. And then when it came to the poetry, which I've improved, PS, but when it came to the poetry in the loose poetry, my editor's note was, I find this poetry to be mid.
Oh my God.
I know. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh my God. I know. I was like, the burn. It was like middle school all over again. So I worked hard on it. I read other poetry. I talked to my poet friends. Alison Green Myers, who is an incredible, they're an incredible poet. Lots of other people, Nonica Ramos, incredible poet. Like, there's like, they're glaring at me. I don't know why. Okay. But so I know people who write incredible poetry and verse. It's, so I had to educate myself because that's not really what I use. But I also really wanted to tap into, and it's not just when Lou is sort of thinking interiorly, it's really also when when Sebas is talking or thinking about his own mother, because that is such a fraught relationship. He's got to come up with new words for even understanding, as he would probably say, this shit show that he finds himself in. So yeah, I really like, words are important to me. The way that people are able to express themselves, especially kids. I feel like kids, whatever language they use, whatever $10 words or like 2-cent words you use, it doesn't matter. It's that you're using them because you're trying to understand the world and yourself. So I wanted to get that across.
And like, what I would give for my children to reside in this world as opposed to this skibbity toilet, whatever.
6'7", 6'7", 6'7".
Oh God. Well,
it's-
and yeah,
no, thank you.
I've touched a nerve.
But actually, I will defend the skibbity and the 6'7".
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Because I see that and I'm like, what in God's, again, what in the hell is this? But I also, I'm like, you're playing with language. That's what you're supposed to do. I am never going to come in and say, don't do that. Speak the whatever, the real English. What real English? This is why I'm getting on a tangent. Hold on.
Yeah.
When people come to me and say, or like, it's Hispanics, not Latinx. Like, that's not a real word. And I'm like, first of all, no. Second of all, we get to change the language. Language is for us. It's not the other way around. We are not in service of language. Language is in service of us. Yeah. We get to play with it. So if we're going to create skibbity, I'm on board with that. If you're letting your middle grade middle schooler say skibbity, you can learn how to say Latinx, Latine. You can. Yeah. Just do it. Just do it.
It is a choice.
Yeah.
That anybody can make.
Anybody can make it.
At some point, I will probably come around on that issue with so I have read The Grief Keeper, which, for anyone in the room or online who has not read The Grief Keeper, oh my God, y'all are missing out, because it is an exceptional book as well. Lambda Award winning. And so between these books, or these two books, we see a lot of ruminations or explorations of grief. And I was wondering, especially in this context, like, we were talking about language, the way these relationships then become a way of like sort of mutual aid where words are concerned, like words maybe don't come as easily to Sebas, but he he leans on Lou at the moments when the grief becomes overwhelming. And so, without getting into, personal weeds, what thoughts and feelings do you have about grief that you would like your audience to be able to sort of internalize?
This is going to sound flip, but I don't mean it this way. Grief is for everybody. It's not just for others. It's not something that'll happen to you maybe one day. It's going to happen to you today. It's going to happen to you. It might be small grief. It might be overwhelming grief that you feel is going to crush you, but grief is real in everybody's life. And let's not try to protect people from grief. Let's not try to erase it. Let's not try to pretend it's not real or pretend you don't feel it or pretend that you've got 45 minutes of grief and then that's it. Your grief is over. I want people to talk about it and I want people to think about it because I think kids are grieving over a lot of different things. The world is not great right now. I don't know if you've seen, but it's not awesome right now and they know it. And we can't protect them from it, as in we can't keep them from it. But what we can do is teach them about it and about their own, like their interior, their feelings, how to feel, how to express their feelings. And that is a tool to not get over grief. Because again, something you're going to live with your whole life it is the flip side of joy and it is important. So you teach them that it is something that they can survive, that will walk with them, and that is natural. Like grieving people is natural, and you mentioned the grief keeper in that book. Ray is y'all know. Ray is the person whose grief is being taken away from her in an effort to spare her, and her family, who has a lot of privilege, will do a lot of not great stuff to spare her the grief of losing her brother. And in the end, that is not it's not a solution. The way they try to solve it is not a solution, but also keeping her from her grief is not a solution. So that's what I would say about grief, that it is not something to be protected from. It is something to be experienced within a loving environment and that someone that understands. And also it's something that comes and stays with you and leaves and comes back. It is something that is going to be part of your life.
Fantastic. I feel like a lot of those heavy themes in the book, grief included, there's, an off-page suicide, trigger warning. They get tempered by how just relatable and funny your characters are. And so I was also reading, and this is just, I guess, me being self-indulgent and wanting to know, like, what are your sort of comedic influences? Like,
Mae Martin. Sorry. No.
Yep.
So I mean like see me later about that. But one of the things that I find the funniest is the unexpected. Like what I find funny is like weird, quirky things that come out of nowhere. Like whether it's a kid saying it, a teen, an adult, anything that is unexpected and sort of like breaks the monotony of like this follows this in your life. It'll startle a laugh. I love being startled into laughter. Like that's one of my favorite things when I'm not expecting and it comes out. And so I think that's my style of comedy. I don't want someone to make necessarily jokes. I want someone to be unexpected and joyful. Like I don't like mean jokes. I like someone to be like a little like
no punching down.
No punching down. That is not. We got enough of that in the world. But being curious and odd and surprised by funny things and joy.
Well, and like the main characters surprise each other as they are slowly but surely, on their fated road to romance.
It's not a spoiler. It's right here.
Right? Yeah. Well, okay. So before I go to this next question, and how are we doing on? We're okay. Okay. So before I ask you about the romance, I have a little present for you.
No.
So the disclaimer is that I finished it maybe an hour before I left my house. So it's not color corrected, and I'm probably going to send you another one.
You're going to make me cry. You're going to make me cry.
But I've got a little scene for you.
Oh my God. I can't with my face. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, Vanessa, it's so beautiful. Oh my God, look at this.
So No, it's Lou and Sebas in the scar, the burn scar.
I'm gonna have to take a short intermission.
All right,
While I
no.
get my brain together. Oh my god, it is so beautiful.
I
Oh,
am so glad you like it. It like that scene was so
I
transcendent for
love
me to read,
it.
and it could not be stopped. I I was basically like,
I can't.
to work today. I'm going to work on this.
Oh my god, it is so gorgeous. It is stunning. I love it so much. Oh my god, it's beautiful. Thank you.
You are so welcome. So, using this as our sort of like
Jumping off my-
conversation starter, I want to talk about the romance and how specifically. No, there we go. Sorry, spam call. What? And how specifically these two individuals are related to your big sort of metaphor of the Fireblooms.
Yeah. So if you don't know what a fire bloom is or a fire poppy, it is native to Northern California, not just Northern California, but to California. It's a California poppy that actually only blooms after an intense wildfire. So you'll find it like it's the seeds are only activated after the intense heat of a wildfire. So you only see them after that. And I in thinking about, like I said before, your brain is like a collider of things. You're like ideas are bumping around in there, and then some of them still together, and you're like, oh wait, a fire bloom. Okay. But both of them, I think, in very different ways, underestimate themselves. They think they're on a path. They think, Sebas especially is like, and he'll say this, he'll be like, easy. I go in, I do the thing, I'm done. He's wrong. He's very wrong. It's not that easy. And he wants it to be that way. And he's a little closed off for a lot of reasons, but mostly because his estranged mother abandoned him when he was a child. And now she is asking for his help. And he has gone in like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do the right thing, and that's it. And everything will be fixed. And then with Lou, it's similarly, he's like, they're like, I know, I know what's going to fix this. If I just restrict my words, stay in this town. They also are, they're 17, so they are trying not to think about college, trying not to think about leaving, because that is being out of their protective bubble. So and they've both been through a lot of trauma. So I feel like they're in the beginning of the book, they're in a place where they think they can survive. They don't know if they can bloom. I think that's the difference. I think neither of them. Who said that? That was Molly. Okay. I think that they both have this idea of like, this is okay. I'm going to get through it in whatever way. But I think that the beauty and the blooming part and the really becoming, they're not there for it. And I will never say that falling in love or finding someone you love is ever going to solve you, fix anything. But the process of finding love can absolutely show you to yourself.
Right.
So I think that's where that is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
catalyzing.
I
You're
just-
very good at this, Vanessa. I'm just going to say that right now. Very good at it.
Gosh, thank you. So while we time check, we're good. Okay, so as a sort of final question, because my other thought was like, okay, am I going to do a scene from the book or am I going to do a tarot card?
Oh,
I know.
Damn.
I'm. That's not to say that I won't do
I
it
was like,
later.
why not both?
Maybe it'll happen anyway. But I found that so I never grew up with anything that was not the standard sort of like Rider Waite, whatever. I am a
Yeah.
collector now. I have
Yeah.
like 20 decks now.
Yeah.
But was Sebas's deck
Mm.
A, inspired by a real deck,
Mm-hmm.
and B, like how did
Yeah.
that get brought in?
So I am like Sebas. I don't believe in tarot cards, even though I also collect them and I love them. They're beautiful objects. And I believe in them in the sense that I feel like they do tell you something about yourself, the way you interpret them. But he would give you a very negative, like, you in the book, he's just like, I'm just going to take these people's money and run because they think I can actually tell the story.
$80, here's the
Yeah.
the tower.
Yeah, right. You get this. But so the cards are actually cartas españolas. So they're like they're playing cards that my grandparents would use to play a bunch of games in South America, like truco and like escoba and like and they're just like the ones that have slightly different suits. They don't have a major arcana. They're all minor cards. But in researching all the things that I was researching, I found that people have used these cartas to tell fortunes, and I was like, and especially in like the turn of the last century up until like the 1930s, 1940s. So then, of course, I'm looking around, being like, how? And I found a guidebook in Spanish, like from the 1930s, of like, here's how you do it, and it was kind of like a parlor game, like something you play with your friends, kind of thing. So I went a little deeper into that, and I managed to find. I'm going to post about the. So now I do read them because I bought a deck from this amazing artist in England who made a cartas españolas, so a Spanish playing deck of non-binary cards. So none of the suits are like, because in the normal suit you've got the king, and you've got like the page, and you've got all of that, and they're gendered. And these are all non-binary. They're and this artist is a non-binary artist, and they're beautiful. So I'm gonna post about that on my Instagram page when I can. But so I love that it was something very specific. I didn't want it. I mean, yes, cartas españolas come from Spain, so they are European, but they're not sort of the tarot cards that you're used to seeing, and not the tarot tradition. And there's something that were brought to the New World and to South, North America, South America, Central America, to play these like old world games in new ways. So I like the idea of using those cards to do something that a lot of people right now are using tarot cards of all kinds to sort of understand a little bit more about themselves. So, but like that's that's why at one point Sebas calls one of his like tarot card readings, Mercury in retrograde is coming for your ass. Like he's really like oh, so you want me to like do some aura cleansing? Sure, $80. Like sure.
Be right back. I'm going to be on YouTube learning how to read palms.
That's exactly right.
How much? So, like, what kind of research then went into this entire project? Because you're not just sort of bringing in elements such as these playing cards, but also just like, did you have to do research for tech? Did you wind up having to sort of like spend time in, like therapeutic, like scholarly articles? I feel like all of that is in there, and I should probably skip doing any of that kind of research.
So
I read your books.
I didn't. I love research, but I don't go so deep that I have to be like, I could build this myself. I can't. But I had to understand how it would work to the layperson, to the consumer. So that was so I wanted to understand how it would work to the people using tech, like the families who would sign up for it. What would you get? Like your box would contain these things. These were the rules that you would have to abide by. If at some point, as happens in the book, somebody does something really against those rules, what are the things that happen? So I had a very clear idea for that, and I did do some research on that. But most of it was just extrapolating from some of the other. There have been, and if you Google it, you'll see attempts to build a like a tech bro utopia. There was one in Canada recently that just didn't go anywhere for planning purposes, but in all of these, that like, oh, it's going to be this incredible thing, and it's like, your municipal services will be taken care of, you'll never have to worry, and the amount of surveillance and personal data you have to give up to get there is astronomical. So I did research on that. I did research on the Fireblooms. I talked to some naturalists in California who took forever to get back to me, and I was like, can you please return my email, please? I just need to know if this is what I'm saying is true. And then just from there, it was like, take the data point, the research point, and then extrapolate from there. It's fun. I like that stuff. Anyway.
Oh no. I just want to, I guess, before we jump to questions, reiterate how beautiful this book is. It is like romance with like some really cool speculative aspects, and for those online and who will eventually potentially watch this on YouTube, like if y'all are not familiar with Alex Villasante's work, what are you doing with your life? Fix that.
What are you doing?
What are you doing with
Let's
your life?
talk about that. But can we also talk about Vanessa's book, please? Just a little bit. When the Tides Held the Moon, because it is, not only did Venessa write this gorgeous book, but they also illustrated it, and it is stunning. I mean, you can tell a little bit of what they can do. The book is even more so. So, and that's your debut. Like how? So check out Vanessa's book as well.
All right.
you.
So,
Oh,
questions.
you can clap.
from the
Yeah, no.
yeah, we would like to clap. Any questions from the audience? We covered just like
We can
all the
pick
things we can
people. No, we did cover a lot of things.
classrooms.
Mhm.
As an educator, I would love to know how you would like educators to use your book in the classroom, especially in this climate. What kind of discussions do you want kids to have? That's what I'd love to know.
Okay, so I'm going to reiterate that for our online audience. The question is, how would you like to see this book implemented in a classroom setting, especially given what's going on in the world today? And what are your thoughts?
So I'm not an educator, but I do think that something like this you could tie together a couple of different ways. You can tie it through current events and what's happening with AI and how that technology is used to a nonfiction book like Accountable, like I said, from Dashka Slater, and then to Fireblooms to be like, well, what would all these things lead to you know, a words are escaping me now. I'm probably being charged for them as I speak. No, like as a thought experiment of like, well, what would that look like in the real world with real kids? Because sometimes these really big topics seem like that they belong to other people or they're happening outside of the world, not inside their world. So to kind of bring them from outside, like the technology, the news, to a nonfiction piece about kids like them, to what would it look like in an emotional level. So that's what one suggestion.
Well, I imagine like there's a whole layer of this, with regards to how bullying plays into all of that that could be
Yeah.
part of classroom discussions. Like obviously when bullies crop up, both the unexpected and the expected ones, I can only imagine that classroom conversations would be really rich on those topics because it is sometimes the person that you don't expect. And yeah, lots of potential. Other questions? Okay, I have. Oh, what do you got? Okay. So the question is, what is your writing process, your day-to-day sort of routine experience of writing?
It's crying. It's mostly crying and eating cookies. No, I mean, yes, there is crying for sure. Because it's hard. Writing is hard, and I have a day job and I have a family. But I do say when people are like, well, how do you keep writing and producing when you have all these other things that you're doing? What I try to do, I'm not an advocate of the you have to write every day because I don't think that's realistic, at least not for me. Your mileage may vary, but I do touch the world of my story every day. So I'm working on two things right now. This is the first time I'm working on two things at the same time. So I know, everybody be scared. I'm scared. So I dip into that world, even if it's just like while I'm washing my hair and I'm thinking about, okay, well, what about this scene, or how would that work, or what would this world be? I ask myself a lot of questions, and then I do try. A friend of mine, Linda Epstein, is just recently invited me to a morning, like, early morning, like Zoom, where you show up, like, you still have like toothpaste in your hair and you're like, you don't put your camera on and you sit there and you write for an hour. So I'm trying to do that so that I'm more intentional with it. But I'm just, and the other thing, which I think everybody knows, but I'm also reading a lot. Like I'm listening to audiobooks and I'm reading a lot. And I'm just like, my grandfather in Uruguay, this is such a tangent, but here we go. It worked on the railroads. Like he was like somebody who fixed engines, railroad engines, okay? And if he were alive today, he would be like, "You get paid for what?" Like he would not understand that I think for a living. Like I think about things, and yes, I also write, but I'm ideating, I'm thinking, I'm creating in my mind, and it's not what he did to make a living and build his house by his own hands and all that. It's different, but that is what I'm doing. So it's not only just about word count or producing a certain amount. It's really living in that world, thinking about that world, and touching that story every day. Yeah.
Well, I remember at one of our fireside sort of like things at Highlights when a similar question came up one of I think your answers was like, I'm in the shower and I'm thinking about my book. Like that
That's
is
basically it.
writing, right? Like, but yeah, like just and what's funny and why I specifically remembered that is because a lot of the stuff that like all of the times that I've written myself into a corner, I'm like, I'm gonna get into the shower.
Oh my God, that is the best. That is the best. You're sitting there. What would Alex do? She'd take a shower, obviously. Let's go.
And inevitably something about like steam and
Yep.
lavender scented body wash.
Is this why you wrote about mermen? This is why you wrote about mermen.
Probably there's something about the just aquatic activities that winds up like loosening the gears.
Wow, we're
I'm
gonna
not
leave
gonna
that
go
right
further.
there. We're gonna
I
leave
feel
that
like-
right there. We're not gonna touch it.
Yeah, so I just take a shower.
When the tides held the moon, you got to get it. It's not good.
I'm like giving myself asthma from laughing. Okay, I have a random question.
Okay.
So Lou and Sebas and their crew, like, which of these individuals, and maybe the answer is like all of them, like, do you resonate with the most?
I think voice wise, like just the sarcasm and I'm like Sebas. Like I'm just like I'm a suspicious person. I'm a suspicious bitch. I am. I'm just like, no, I don't think so. But I really like Kenzie a lot. I aspire to be as cool as Kenzie. I feel like Kenzie is much cooler than me. And I think Kenzie like might be friends with me if like she didn't have a lot else on. But basically, I just feel like she's really cool. So
You would be the person that like hovers around.
I know I'd be like, can I get you anything? Can I get you a latte, Kenzie? Please let me get you something. Yeah, but I think Sebas is, and I think that like that's the voice part, but like the very soft, the soft and a resolute part of Lou, I hope is partially me too. So
That's interesting. So when I read Fireblooms, I was reading it when I was on my own, and then when I was like walking like to and from the school where I drop my kids off, I was listening to it. So I had the lovely experience of text and also audiobook. And your narrator for Sebas is
amazing.
so good.
He is really good. Oh my gosh, they're both really good.
Yeah, they're both
really
phenomenal.
Yeah,
but I felt when I would hear the Sebas POV portions, I was like, oh, I'm feeling Alex all over this. This is so fantastic. Oh my god.
it's just that Sebas has so many opinions, and so do I. Like I'm 95% opinions.
Oh my. But also his incredibly like tender and sensitive heart as well, I think. I mean, anyways, any other questions? Yes.
Oh my God. Okay,
God.
it's a karaoke question. Okay. 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 Oh my gosh.
Okay, so the question is, these characters, Lou and Sebas, go to karaoke, and what songs do they sing?
So they all go down to Dry Town, right? And they all go, and there's karaoke there. Okay, so first, let me start with the least hard first. Diego does not. He would not, because he would be afraid of looking foolish. He's got a lot of sensitivity about that. He doesn't want.
He's slightly emotionally constipated.
He is. He is. Yeah. So Diego would not play, would not sing. Kenzie, I feel like I don't know, probably something K-pop that like their
Oh, she'd be all over Golden.
she would and she'd do it perfectly, like choreographed. It would be amazing. And then I feel like, so I don't know what I don't know what karaoke song I'm gonna. Yeah, I think that Sebas would probably do like a punk song, like some like Mexican, like Mexico City kind of punk song, like en español, would just be like they're screaming and like bouncing around. His hair would be all over his face. And I think that I think if you could get Lou to do it, and I think maybe after the afternoon that these young people have had, you might get Lou to do it. I think that he would probably do like a Perfume Genius song, like something like Describe or something like that, because it's I think I think they really identify with that artist. That's in my I do know what my characters listen to, embarrassingly. Sometimes I'm like, you listen to that? Okay, I guess. Anyway,
Are
yeah.
you gonna put out like playlists?
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. Yeah. Maybe.
I would listen. I would.
It'll be. I have to think about it a little more because I feel like, yeah, I mean, like, it would probably take me like 6 months to be like, not this song. Let me listen to this other song, and I get really into it.
Yeah, are you the type like
I
me
am.
who curates then
Yes.
recurates?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I will take suggestions. So if you read Fireblooms and you have suggestions, like just DM me your suggestions for the karaoke playlist. I'd love that.
All right. Thank you all for
Thank
being here.
you.
Thank you, Alex.
Yes,
And
so
thank
much.
you to those online. Yay, Fireblooms!
Sorry. Yeah, just want to say thanks to everybody for joining tonight. Thank you guys for such a great conversation. We're gonna take a couple minutes and kind of flip the space for signing. And if you'd like to purchase a copy of Fireblooms or of Vanessa's books, we have them upstairs. And then